He was a young man who transformed into a legend, a gunslinger who challenged death, a fugitive who eluded an entire frontier. This narrative centers on Billy the Kid, America's most notorious outlaw, whose name continues to resonate through the canyons of the Wild West. At merely 21 years of age, he killed men twice his age, escaped from prison cells like a specter, and ignited a conflict that reverberated throughout the West. But was he a remorseless murderer or a casualty of treachery? And did he truly perish that fateful night in 1881? Or did he slip into legend? Before we proceed, kindly ensure to like and subscribe to the channel. On February 18, 1878, William H. Bonney, later known as Billy the Kid, rode 300 yards behind his employer and friend, John Tunstall, in Lincoln County. Suddenly, two gunshots echoed. Tunstall, who served as both Billy's mentor and ally, was struck down by a gang known as the Boys and fell from his horse. Billy rushed to his fallen friend. Consumed by fury and grief, he vowed, "Before this concludes, I will make them pay." As a child, Billy resided in Silver City, New Mexico, with his mother and stepfather, where he adopted the local lifestyle. He became proficient in Spanish, even assimilating with Mexican locals, earning their admiration and friendship. Billy and his brother played with other children in the town, creating cherished memories. However, his slight stature and gentle features made him a frequent target for bullies. Those who knew him described him as reserved yet kind-hearted, fiercely loyal, courteous, and remarkably brave. In 1874, disaster struck when Billy's mother, Catherine, passed away from tuberculosis. His stepfather, William Antrim, abandoned the family, moving to Arizona. At the tender age of 14, Billy was left to survive on his own, residing in a boarding house. There, he formed a friendship with a petty criminal known as Sombrero Jack. Billy's destiny took a dramatic turn when Jack committed a robbery at a Chinese laundry, Woman MTT, an event that would change his life forever. He instructed Billy to conceal the stolen items and hide them in the boarding house. However, Mrs. Brown, the proprietor, discovered the stolen property and notified the sheriff. Sombrero Jack escaped the town, but Billy was apprehended and imprisoned for a brief period of 2 days. During his incarceration, he persuaded the sheriff to allow him some fresh air. The main entrance of the prison was always secured, leading the public to perceive no threat. Yet as soon as the sheriff turned his back, Billy managed to slip into the fireplace, climbed up the chimney, and sprinted across the prison roof to attain his freedom. This event marked the onset of Billy's infamy. His story even made headlines, with the Silver City Herald covering the robbery. Now a fugitive in dire straits, he boarded a stagecoach to his stepfather's residence in Arizona. Upon confessing to the crime, Antrim expelled him, but not before Billy pilfered some clothing and firearms. The two would never cross paths again. In Camp Grant, a blacksmith named Frank Wendy Cahill frequently harassed the young man. On August 18, 1877, while at Atkins' Cantina, Wendy attempted to humiliate him one final time, which proved to be the last. In the ensuing altercation, Billy managed to free an arm, drew his .45, and fired. The massive blacksmith fell, lifeless before he reached the ground. Billy broke free, dashed out of the cantina, and mounted a waiting horse, disappearing into the distance. With the blacksmith's blood staining his hands, he fled back to New Mexico and allied himself with the most infamous gang of outlaws, the Boys. Under the leadership of Jesse Evans, alongside John Kinney, they were acquainted with the Rustler King. As his right-hand man, the Boys accepted assignments from the house, a formidable syndicate involved in cattle, land, and supplies. A prominent figure within this organization was James Dolan, a merciless Irish immigrant who eliminated adversaries without hesitation. Even the law yielded to his influence, including Sheriff Brady, who was on the house's payroll. Subsequently, John Tunstall, a wealthy Englishman, arrived in Lincoln County with the intention of dismantling Dolan's control by establishing his own store and cattle business. Tunstall's achievements negatively impacted the house's profits, leading to a deep-seated rivalry with Dolan. In retaliation, Dolan instructed Billy and his gang to steal Tunstall's horses. However, they were apprehended, resulting in Billy's incarceration once again. During his time in jail, Tunstall visited him, and they quickly established a strong connection. Tunstall offered Billy legitimate employment, which he accepted. Despite being only 6 years older, Tunstall commanded Billy's respect and became the mentor he had long desired. For the first time since his mother's death, Billy felt a sense of belonging. Tunstall and his associates embraced him, and one employee later noted that he attracted attention wherever he went. Even when heavily armed, he carried himself with the grace of a refined gentleman. His sharp wit and charisma endeared him to the local community, making him a beloved figure. However, tragedy struck during a pivotal ride. While Billy lagged 300 yards behind the group, two of Tunstall's men noticed wild turkeys and deviated to hunt. Seizing the opportunity, Billy's former gang ambushed Tunstall, brutally killing him. Overwhelmed with grief, yet driven by a desire for revenge, Billy realized that Sheriff Brady would align with the house. Instead, he sought the assistance of Justice of the Peace Wilson, who issued arrest warrants for Tunstall's murderers. Wilson assigned Constable Martinez to execute the warrants, enlisting Billy and his companion Dick Brewer to help. For the first time, Billy felt he had the law on his side, or so he thought. The trio headed straight to Dolan's store to capture the assailants, but Sheriff Brady intercepted them. He arrested Constable Martinez along with Billy and Dick. Although Martinez was released within hours, Billy and Dick remained in custody, missing Tunstall's funeral. After they were finally released, they returned to Justice Wilson. Outraged by the sheriff's interference with justice, Wilson formally designated Dick Brewer to carry out the warrants. Brewer gathered a group of Tunstall's devoted supporters, which naturally included Billy. They named themselves the Regulators and initiated a fierce campaign of retribution against those responsible for Tunstall's death. They exhibited no compassion, fully aware that the corrupt judicial system would fail to hold the perpetrators accountable. Justice became their personal mission, executed swiftly and without leniency. Their campaign culminated in an ambush of Sheriff Brady and his deputy, resulting in the deaths of both law enforcement officials. However, this victory came at a significant cost. Billy sustained a gunshot wound to his side, and the Regulators lost their leader, Dick Brewer, during the violent encounter. As chaos engulfed Lincoln County and the violence gained notoriety, federal authorities took action. Washington appointed a new territorial governor, Lew Wallace, who promptly declared the Regulators outlaws, turning them from vigilantes into wanted criminals. Billy was formally accused of murdering Sheriff Brady. The Lincoln County War reached its bloody climax when Billy and his remaining associates barricaded themselves in a home adjacent to Tunstall's store, owned by Tunstall's attorney. Dolan's forces, now bolstered by soldiers and sorcerers from Fort Stanton, surrounded the property. In this dire situation, Billy emerged as the natural leader, crafting an escape strategy. As night fell, the group simultaneously burst from various exits, dispersing into the darkness. Billy and several Regulators successfully eluded capture. The burden of the conflict now rested heavily on Billy's shoulders. With a bounty on his head, he and his surviving companions stole horses and fled to Fort Sumner, a former military outpost now occupied by Mexican settlers. This secluded location proved ideal for concealment, and Billy felt at ease among the Mexican community. Billy found enjoyment in dancing and socializing with local women. However, as some Regulators became disillusioned with their outlaw lifestyle and disbanded, the group's existence came to a close. Although Governor Wallace had offered amnesty to those involved in the Lincoln County War, Billy was not included due to his involvement in Sheriff Brady's death. Without a forthcoming pardon, his only option for peace was to reconcile with his former adversaries. He returned to Lincoln County to engage in negotiations with James Dolan and the House faction. The negotiations were tense, resulting in a fragile truce that was celebrated with drinks, although Billy chose to abstain while accompanying the revelers outside. The celebration turned violent when they encountered Houston Chapman, a lawyer investigating the House's activities. Sensing impending trouble, Billy attempted to leave but was obstructed by Dolan's men. In the ensuing confrontation, Chapman was shot dead. Seizing the first opportunity, Billy escaped the town. The governor, enraged by Chapman's murder, struck a deal with Billy. He would receive full immunity in exchange for testifying against Dolan's men. Billy fulfilled his part, providing incriminating testimony in court that infuriated his enemies. However, after the trial, Wallace went back on their agreement, returning to Santa Fe to concentrate on righting Ben-Hur, or instead of granting the promised pardon. Feeling betrayed by both his former enemies and the governor, Billy found himself caught between the law and his outlaw existence. With no protection and a target on his back, he reverted to the only life he knew, walking out of jail and back into danger. Billy formed a new gang and resumed his outlaw activities. His primary adversary emerged in Pat Garrett, a tall former buffalo hunter and cowboy who became the Lincoln County Sheriff, determined to capture him. Garrett eventually cornered Billy's gang at Stinking Springs, surrounding their hideout until they surrendered. Convicted and imprisoned in Lincoln while awaiting execution, Billy demonstrated that no cell could contain him. With Garrett absent, he shot 2 deputies during a daring escape and then lingered in town. Engaging in lively conversations with friendly locals while enjoying the festivities, one man almost intervened, but was restrained by his wife, likely saving his life. Following a night of revelry, Billy calmly requisitioned a horse and departed. Upon his return to chaos, Garrett suppressed his anger and devised a plan. Aware that Billy would likely go into hiding, he patiently awaited the opportunity for his target to reappear. Although Billy had numerous romantic entanglements, he maintained a close relationship with Paulita Maxwell, the sister of Pete Maxwell from Fort Sumner, a connection that Garrett intended to exploit. He began receiving information regarding Billy's whereabouts in Fort Sumner and promptly set out to apprehend him. On the evening of July 14, 1881, Garrett and his deputy stealthily entered Fort Sumner and approached Pete Maxwell's residence, an old acquaintance of the sheriff. After rousing Maxwell, Garrett took a seat on the edge of the bed as they spoke in the dimly lit room. Maxwell confirmed that Billy was indeed in town, just as the young outlaw unexpectedly appeared in the doorway. Despite the darkness, Maxwell quietly identified him, stating, "That's him." 2 gunshots echoed, and 21-year-old Billy the Kid fell, lifeless. In subsequent years, Garrett's deputies would question whether he had truly killed the man due to the inadequate visibility. This doubt intensified in 1948 when an elderly individual named Brushy Bill Roberts emerged, claiming to be the genuine Billy the Kid. He reached out to an attorney in pursuit of the pardon that Governor Wallace had promised many years prior. Brushy Bill presented convincing evidence, showcasing escape methods from handcuffs and displaying 26 scars from gunshots and knives. Most notably, several of Billy's former associates provided sworn statements affirming his identity. Nevertheless, authorities dismissed his request as ludicrous. Within a month of his application being denied, Brushy Bill passed away, the promised pardon forever unattainable, leaving lingering questions about whether Billy the Kid had indeed perished that fateful night in 1881.